Welcome to this month's edition of Pulp Nonfiction, the Paper and Packaging Podcast. I'm Greg Johnson with Sustana Fiber, and I'm here once again with my co-host, Dr. Marta Pazos. So, Marta, Happy New Year. Although the years may seem to come and go, certain things like good manners never seem to go out of style. And despite technological advances over the years from the telegraph to texting, nothing beats putting ink on paper when it comes to conveying heartfelt emotions like faith, hope, and love, right?
Happy New Year, Greg. I don't know about you, but 2022 is going to be an amazing year for a lot of different things. But I gotta say that I was a little sad and not having gotten a lot of these the paper Christmas cards in the mail. You know, those ones that have just a little bit of glitter, maybe a Santa, and just like a simple Merry Christmas inside. Everything seems to come electronically these days. We're losing that connection to our paper. But I gotta tell you, yesterday, a friend of mine that I recently saw when I went to visit the Northeast, he sent me a card in the mail, and it's actually made of recycled paper, which made me even like it more. I was so excited, just like open it and we gotta bring cards back, people. Bring cards back. Hashtag at the beginning.
Exactly, Marta. And what better way to explore the subject of paper and its social impact than with our guest today, Cheree Berry, the founder, CEO, and creative director of Cheree Berry Paper and Design. Cheree's St. Louis based graphic design and brand communications firm does exceptional design and marketing messaging for a number of high profile companies, organizations, and celebrities, including Matt Damon, Dylan's Candy Bar, the NFL, Tina Fey, Martha Stewart, the Boston Red Sox, Kate Spade, and Target. Cheree, it's great to see you again. We're grateful for your time today, and thank you for visiting with us.
Thank you, Greg and Marta, for having me today on Pulp Nonfiction. I'm excited to be here.
Hi, Cherie. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us today. As Greg mentioned, you have collaborated in the very striking and unique branding and vision of very loved brands, right? Some of them actually are very loved by myself. Tell us a little bit about that creative process of like how does a person become an expert in your field? What is like what's your very unique field? How would you describe it and how did you become that?
Yeah, we are a little bit of a niche here as in the graphic design industry. So basically, we are visual identifiers. So we are helping people visually communicate the milestones that they are celebrating in life. So whether or not that is a couple who is getting married and they need an amazing monogram or mark, all the way to invitations, to all the gorgeous paper that you see at an event, to a nonprofit who is fundraising and needs everybody to commit to this one particular event to come to their night out, helping them with all the communication in a very visually stimulating, compelling way. That's in a nutshell what we do.
So, Cheree, what's the first thought that comes to your mind when somebody mentions the word sustainability? I know you've always been interested in recycled papers, environmental papers, but when someone mentions that word, sustainability, what pops into your brain?
First thing is being responsible. I mean, I really think that it's almost odd sometimes when that question isn't being asked. So I think it's great that people are being curious about the final product and what that's made out of. So we appreciate that question and do our best to educate our clients based on their needs of what would be the best compatible material for them if it is a print-based project. It just feels like a no-brainer now to be asking those questions and the right thing to do.
Very good, very good. And do you, as kind of a follow-up question, do you see your clients as the years have rolled on getting a little more sensitive, if you will, to the environment and thinking, hey, maybe with this invitation, we could send it in a recycled envelope, or the announcement itself maybe could have some post-consumer waste in it. Do you sometimes get into those
Mm-hmm.
specifics depending on
Yeah.
the client?
Yeah. I think where we are right now is, I think, that a lot of the questions that people are asking are, should I do print or should I do digital? And what I think you're alluding to is there is an in between, right? So I think that we are trying to help our clients understand that it's not one way or the other, that you can still be very environmentally mindful and still go print, right? So and some suppliers have are much more eco than others, and it really just depends on where people fall in the spectrum and how important it is to them, and really what is it that they are celebrating. Is it a little backyard barbecue, or is it a 75th wedding anniversary, right? Different sort of
Sure.
maybe needs for based on what it is that you are communicating.
Sure, sure. That makes total sense. That I totally get that. And I know I think too, a lot of people today are in addition to being more sensitive about that, I think they're much more receptive when they do see things in the mail, whether it's a catalog, direct mail. They might look at the back and they're flipping through it and they do see that recycled logo on there, or that recyclable logo printed on the back of the catalog or the postcard, that I think makes them think and increases that environmental awareness.
Right. I agree. I do think that people are being mindful of why would Grandin Road send this to me, but if they see that it's that they were smart about how they produced it, and then, oh, well, let me look in this catalog. There is something so tangible. I mean, a lot of my Black Friday sales were based on what catalog showed up, and there was a coupon code in the back, and that definitely got my attention more than the 85 Black Friday emails in my inbox, right? So I think
Sure.
that there is a balance, not to say we need a restoration hardware catalog again. It's like the size of a yellow pages, but I think that there is that enticing tangible thing that comes as long as it's done, produced, and mindful in terms of, again, what inks and what papers they're printing it on, that allows them to have better results than just going digital.
Yeah, kind of a happy media mix, if
Yeah,
you will, between print and digital.
exactly.
So I've seen some of your work and I admire your art capabilities. As a person who is a scientist, like obviously the writings on the wall here, like we are the opposite, on the opposite spectrum, although I like to think that a lot of science is very creative. But tell us what takes for Cheree to listen to a client, hear their vision, and translate this into this striking visual that is going to resonate with you every time that you look at it. What do you do? I mean, it sounds so difficult to me.
I mean, we have a very specific process. We ask a lot of probing questions. It's not just about like, what's your color palette, or what does your wedding dress look like, or those surface questions. We get pretty deep into questions to our clients because we want the end result to be as personalized as possible. Really, we are nothing we do is template driven. People are not coming to us because they want something exactly that they've seen us do for somebody else. They want the feeling of that created for them. So it's a lot of questions, a lot of getting to know, our clients, because sometimes it's those side conversations that are even more helpful than the questions on the paper. And then, we try to work as nimble as possible. A lot of people in the world are visuals. So as many mood boards and sketches that we can get in front of people will help them weed out anything that doesn't feel like is ultimately going to be a good solution for how their vision can come to life.
What happens when somebody is like, well, yeah, this is kind of my vision, but I like, how do you translate those nuances? What do you have, like a very visual type of brain? Do you I don't know, scrap on a book, something like that? Something like more material into what that takes.
Yeah, I think, just experience of doing this so long, understanding what questions work for people and what don't. Asking what people don't like is just as important of asking what people do like. We have found that that's definitely ruling things out is always good. And like I said, with people being so visual, after we ask those questions, then we can put some visuals in front of them so they can react to that. So it's kind of a combination of, questionnaires. They've got to do some homework for us. We can't, get to know someone that deep the very first 30-minute Zoom call. So there is a very specific process from sort of introduction to sort of final presentation. That we continue to improve upon, of course, but it's a pretty sound procedure, which is kind of exciting. It's come with a lot of hard work and some misses, of course, but it's really sort of a proprietary process that we are really proud about, how we are able to present something to someone and kind of see tears come out of their eyes because they're so excited that we figured out really what was inside, how we were able to put that on paper or on a digital device to whatever the media might be.
Cheree, I know you're well aware of Sustana Fiber and our recycled pulp that goes into everything in paper products, from paper cups and carry-out containers to bags and even recyclable microwavable sleeves. And I know you've seen some of our fine papers from our sister mill, Roland, up in Canada, but what do you see in terms of your crystal ball for the social stationery space in terms of sustainability in the future?
First, I would say I hope my crystal ball would tell me that people are going to continue, many years from now, still engaging in social stationery. And I think that all stems from, parenting and making sure that etiquette is still in place when it needs to be. But I think that there is definitely a sustainable system that could be that could work. I mean, it may not be too far off to think about it, almost like the farm to table movement, where there might be a way where, sourcing trees that could create an excellent product that could somehow, close the loop on the paper production by recycling the pulp through Sustana and be able to, have this cool system of just within the social stationery arena, perhaps. But I think that obviously means that we have to have enough people, using social stationery to make that worthwhile. But I think that's kind of that would be a cool thing to see in my crystal ball.
Sure. Well, I like your vision, your crystal ball's vision. That's great.
And that actually brings me to another, what I believe is a pretty good point, which is so you actually have clients both in a corporate space as well as what we would call more like an individual, right? And I have seen myself as a consultant that more and more of my clients are asking me for what would be a more natural solution, or what would be a botanical or less impacting to the environment. And this goes for, every place where I have dabbed my knowledge, everything from skincare all the way to the military. How do you see that happening? How much more have you seen in the past couple of decades? I believe that's probably where the onset was, that your clients are requesting more and more environmentally friendly options for your events, for your marketing, for your visuals, all of that.
I would say it's kind of based on the client and the project. For instance, a client who's getting married is going to be less focused on that because we hope, a one-time deal. They're going to do this one time, and it's going to be for posterity and formality, and they want it to be, a mega thick piece of paper, lots of maybe foil stamping, and maybe we glue velvet to the back of it, whatever that might be. That type of clientele is a little less worried about it because it's not an everyday endeavor, right? But our corporate clients, our nonprofits, are definitely asking a lot of questions in that space. And I'm glad, because I would say, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was a bit of an era for us that people were not doing business cards anymore. They weren't doing letterheads. They're like, this is wasteful. We just would rather not do any of it. So we're just going to erase it all, and we're going to do everything digital. And I'm glad that it's coming back in a smart way, that there is a way that we can still have beautiful business cards to pass out at trade shows, or we can be able to write a note to people on paper if it's done, on the right substrate, with all those right sort of attributes. So I would say our nonprofit and our corporate clients in that arena are definitely wanting to make sure they're being smart about what they're using on an everyday basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up with this question because I can't hold it to myself. Are they willing to pay a little bit more for those more environmentally friendly solutions?
Yeah, I would say the people that's really important to them, they know there's a price tag associated with that, and they are. But it's not everybody, but the ones that are really, maybe if you rank the priorities, right? When we ask our clients to rank priorities of sustainability, or typography, or illustration assets, whatever those things might be, the people that with sustainability is number one, that they know they're going to be putting money towards it to make that happen.
And is it common to have a specific request, such as, I want this on paper, I want this type of inks, I don't want glues? Is there any specific requirements that you're seeing?
From our vendors or from our clients?
From your clients, when they are asking for a sustainable option.
No, they're not too challenging. We do, for certain clientele, we do give them we make sure they understand what paper, what inks we're using. But I would say most of our clients are trusting us. So it's not an everyday question. I would say it's a bi-weekly question we might get.
As a follow-up to Marta's question and your comment, Cheree, I know most of us are constantly inundated with electronic communications, yet you say that a lot of your clients do appreciate the old-fashioned look of paper. Do you ever have to persuade some clients to switch from, say, an Evite to a paper invitation because of the fact that you believe that they'll be able to target their market better and achieve a higher rate of return, or a fundraising level, or a response rate?
Yeah. First and foremost, we started it with the paper medium, so we're always going to prefer the paper medium over digital. But we also know that there's a time and a place for digital correspondence. So we sort of have a decision tree for people that are not really sure, sort of based on the communication they're doing, what we might suggest, how to disseminate that communication. For instance, a bridal shower, we might say that would be something good to do a pretty gorgeous, a very nice digital communication. But for a rehearsal dinner, the formality and the again, I keep talking about the formality and the posterity behind that piece should be done in print. So I would say there are times more now that people are wanting to go digital that we are trying to persuade them to go print. It's not usually the other way around anymore. But I'm really excited to say that print is really hanging in there. I mean, there was a time a few years ago that I was afraid that wedding invitations were all going to be sent via paperless post or something, and that we're not seeing that at all. We are seeing just more with the sort of the lag time with the USPS deliveries is response cards, like this communication like a tennis ball back and forth is not happening through snail mail because of just there isn't the time or the efficiencies behind it. But being able to send a beautifully packaged invitation with even a care package. I mean, especially during quarantine, we went from a lot of 2-dimensional in an envelope mailers to 3-dimensional so that we could stay in touch with people, send something through their door with, especially the nonprofits who are doing these virtual galas, wanted to have this amazing packet, this programming delivered to your couch, basically, with a cocktail kit and some cookies and a little giftable item. So I think, but they're not asking for return the same way. So I think it's become more commonplace now that it stops you in your tracks to receive something gorgeous delivered to your door that's print and tangible and feels special. But then the ask back is not to go pull out your social stationery from your drawer and write back, it's with my pleasure to accept your response, like that. That is expired, and that makes sense. And so then there
Sure.
are websites or emails or things set up to communicate on a more nimble, efficient, standpoint.
Interesting. Well, hey, on a related note too, Cheree, I know you mentioned 3D, and I know a couple years ago you produced a really fascinating pop-up book. Could you tell our audience just a little bit about that, and are you thinking of maybe using that type of creativity to perhaps branch out into 3D announcements and invitations?
Yes, my paper engineering skills from, like, I guess 2000 are still serving me well. Yeah, I wrote and designed a pop-up book on the history of the brassiere, and it was a decade by decade look at the evolution of the bra and how it was really sort of a symbol for what women stood for, since its birth in 1913. But yeah, I mean, we're really where our space is in the print world is really, it's not just a 5x7 card in an envelope that gets sandwiched between bills and other things. It may come in the form of an envelope, but that experience, it's all about how you engage with a piece, again, whether it's for a social event, it's for a nonprofit, it's for something else in between, is that something could pop out of an envelope, or there could be little peekaboo windows, or there are these fun things that really make it feel like, wow, I can't experience that with digital. So that was so cool, and how could I say no to this event, because that's amazing. So never being trying to be too ostentatious or over the top, but still having that, like, that moment of that was so different. And so I think always playing with paper and folding and doing things like that are still things that we put to practice at Cheree Berry Paper.
That's fantastic.
I'm so delighted here in this conversation. First, Cheree, I'm loving your passion that when you're talking about, something that may sound as simple as opening a book, but it has nothing of simplicity to it, right? It is that
Yeah.
experience. It is like that whole consumer experience that I think that we are losing along the way. And I am thinking, my mind keeps going to Asia, where in Japan, the packaging of a gift is even more important than the actual gift, right? Because it is like the whole ceremony of opening that up. And I'm one of those that absolutely loves to get home and unfold something. And let me
Yeah.
tell you guys a little piece of information that I recently heard on one of the many podcasts that I listen to, which is that sending an email or receiving an email, for that matter, it is not as environmentally friendly as people think. And this keeps bringing me to, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it can't hurt you, right? And in the sustainable, in Greg, you know that I don't necessarily like that word, but in like an environmentally friendlier pathway, right? We're gonna have to realize that it's not just the trash that we can see. It's just not just the plastic. It's also what kind of emissions, where is this coming from, what kind of energy this is costing. And in fact, if I don't send like thank you emails anymore, like, those like received or thank you, is because I heard this. So note, Greg, that's a true reason. But also, let me give you another little piece of information that I recently found out. So David Meyer, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Michigan, recently reported that it being all of what I call it all over the place, which we found a fancy word for it, which is multitasking. It is 40% inefficient. So it really, like, what you do at that time, like, count that only 60% or below is actually going to be worth the effort, right? And I feel that, and in talking to a lot of people, I believe that a lot of people feel the same way, that this whole all electronic is actually taking us more towards that, uh being all over the place, right? Lack of
Yeah.
focus. What's your take on that, and what can paper do to reverse that? I'm actually a doodler, I'm one of those that when I'm on the phone I
Yeah.
need to doodle.
No,
So
great.
yeah.
No, I love that question. I mean, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, first of all, as a parent, I think one thing that I'm not enjoying seeing, out of the classroom is there's a lot of the homework is being asked to be done on iPads or computers, and as a parent, it's really stressful to know that they're like staring at this device and you don't know the toggling that might be happening to quickly, find the answer. Or of course, as parents we can sort of disable certain things, but it's also just keeping up with that, making sure the noise is closed down at all time, and not seeing my kids sit at the breakfast table and have a worksheet with a pencil, number two pencil, and write the answer, be able to check it, know they're only present at that moment with that worksheet, is a really stressful thing for parents, because you just know that there's just so much distraction that's happening that you can't always be monitoring all the time, and if you it's a full-time job. um, but yes, I mean, I think too, as designers, so many of those discoveries you mentioned, your doodler, happen when you're just in the you're in the the bind of the spiral of the notebook, where you're doing things that you see things that are not, and it just allows you to be so much more present when you are just a pen and a paper, as opposed to, oh, I should check my text, or oh, I need to go on and look at this, or Cyber Monday yesterday, let me go check it. Like, all those things that like are happening, that if you just isolate yourself to a pencil and a paper, you are just so much more efficient. And even with the to-do list, it feels so fulfilling to cross things off your list on a piece of paper that you just can't get with on any other, on a
You
device.
just touched my heart with that one. I love to cross things on a paper, right? And I am still one of those that
So
whenever I
gratifying.
need to read something with a certain level of concentration, focus, and detail, I'm going to print it out. And if anybody tells me that that is, a worse option than read it off the computer, I like to rebut that by saying, hey, how about the power that you're using when you are on your computer? And I guarantee you too that it's
Yeah.
going to take you much longer because of what you said, right?
Yeah, yeah. We actually have this exercise at the office when we get revisions requested from the client. When designers have done those revisions, just eyeballing that they got them all from the email, versus if they print out the email and they cross them all out, 10 times out of 10 you get them all when you print it out and you strike it, versus just eyeballing it, because I guess our eyes just trained to like just skim things on our screens. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I love those thoughts. And Cherie, on a related note, what do you do from a personal as well as a professional standpoint in your day to day living to be as sustainable as you can be, not only for yourself, but for your company, for your family, friends?
See, well, professionally, obviously we're all, recycling, and we do try to limit as much paper printing, at the office as possible, just if it's not necessary. At a minimum,
Sure.
double sided. When we do our design kickoffs, we cast things on our monitor that's mounted to the wall, so that not everything we do has to be printed, because we do know we do so much of that as the end result, that we need to be smart about the journey getting there and how much is printed on that sort of the design sketch sort of dress rehearsal phase. um, and then at home with my kids, I mean, yeah, I'm just constantly, after they eat their yogurt, it's like, clean that out, go stick in the recycling. So many times I open up the trash can and there's something there that's sitting in the top of the trash can, and we have to have those conversations, just starting them young, to realize that
Sure.
all those little things, those 1%, add up. So, um, it is definitely a conversation that follows me at home and at work, because it's, as it should everybody.
Yeah, I mean that's the way to do it, right? We all have to do it, so everybody does it. Otherwise, it's you
Yeah,
can't. I believe always that it's not good to put the responsibility over to somebody else that may have a little more impact, or something or somebody else, right? Just because it's a bigger
yeah, right,
corporation, it starts with you, because after all,
yeah,
corporations are made of people too, right? Um,
yeah.
and speaking of corporations or lack thereof, so I'm actually also an entrepreneur, and I love to hear more about how you started. What kicked you to be the entrepreneur that you are today, and a really good one too, very successful.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, it really started with my love of paper. I loved nothing more as a child than going to the Hallmark store and looking at all the greeting cards. I would just walk up and down the aisle, and I could be there for hours. I preferred that more than any other activity with friends. It was just, there was something, so the discoveries and the surprises that you would find in the copywriting, or the little bells and whistles, and the humor, or the emotion that you would get with that. So it really started really young, of loving the communication. My mom was really good about making my sisters and I write thank you cards for anything. So it just became like it just was, I had to do it. It wasn't optional. So I think that has been great. So that's how I really kind of got into this niche of, social stationery, custom invitations, because of that specific love. And then went to school for graphic design. So all of that kind of came together as a perfect storm. But before I did start my own business, I was a designer at Kate Spade, and I got really lucky to be at a place so magical as Kate Spade, where I was working on her very small stationery line, that allowed me to open up the world to, like, oh my gosh, I could maybe get paid for doing this. This is not doesn't just happen to be a hobby. Like, that was such a luxury. And then ended up moving back to St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from, and decided just to have a go at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you describe Kate Spade as a magical place, because that's exactly the way that I imagine it. Because it always resonates. Alice in Wonderland always comes to my head when I think of Kate Spade, right?
Yeah,
So, which is
it
probably what
really
she
is.
got a lot of her inspiration for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would really credit Kate Spade, her husband Andy Spade, for really being the pioneers in the lifestyle world. Really was not just about a product, but it was about this, like, you wanted to be a part of this little magical Alice in Wonderland, I think is what you said, a world that it felt like you wanted all of it. You wanted the handbag to match your stationery, to go with your pajamas, and not all matchy, but that it was all felt like the same vibe. So that's kind of what, we have similar. We're not expanding into all these other licensing brands in the same way that Kate Spade has, but there is a world in which we want you to enter here and feel like, even though we're executing your vision, there's a feeling about it that feels part of the process, and the end result that feels really special.
Something whimsical.
Yes, yes, we do love that word.
I do
Yeah,
love that.
that's a great
It's a
descriptor.
good word.
Cherie, it's been such a pleasure today. And as we wrap up our chat, are there any new projects on the horizon this year in 2022? Any collaborations you might be able to share with our audience today?
I mean, the biggest thing I can tell you right now, our weddings are so back in such a big way. I mean, it is just exploded. I mean, obviously we are having still some of the residuals of COVID weddings are still being rescheduled. But love is in the air, and the planning is happening. We've got, every weekend is a fun, amazing wedding that we get to be a part of. And we're always thinking about our collaborations. We have an amazing collaboration right now with the company Somersault. They started out as a direct-to-consumer swimwear line, but now they have ready-to-wear and loungewear, athleisure wear, and so we just did a fun collaboration with them some Christmas PJs. But for 2022, we're just always thinking about like-minded brands, love other women-owned businesses. Really making sure it's the right fit. That will be fun for us to collaborate on.
In addition to the weddings coming back, are you starting to see the nonprofit segment of your business returning as well as people start to feel more comfortable getting out and about?
Yes, slowly but surely. That has definitely been an industry that's been hard to come back. I mean, from as you would imagine, just much larger audience. At a wedding, you can averages 800 people, is maybe 100 people, 120 nonprofits. It's a much larger audience, and so they have to be much more mindful. But it is happening. I don't think the virtual events are here to stay really long term. I think there's been some good things out of understanding, like do committee meetings and board meetings, some of that good stuff can maybe remain virtual, but in terms of those connections and in-person connections, I definitely think 2022 will be the year that they're back in a big way, hopefully. Actually tonight, since today happens to be Giving Tuesday, which is when we're taping this, is UNICEF's 75th anniversary. And so
Awesome.
we executed all of their visual identity for their event tonight that is virtual around the world. And they also have 10 host cities. So they're actually able to pull off 10 in-person events tonight, all sold out, huge audience for it. So if UNICEF's doing it, that's a good sign that we all can be doing it soon.
Well, that's fantastic. That sounds like a wonderful project.
It makes me so happy to hear that events in person are back.
It sounds like because of people like you, Cheree, with the paper connection, that we are returning back, which is great news.
We are. I'm here to tell you. You heard it here, folks.
Cheree, thank you again. It's been so fun, and we're really grateful for your time today.
Thank you guys so much. It's been great.
Thank you, Cheree. Such a pleasure. Thanks.
Continued success.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Marta.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.